Today we're taking this big red door and turning it into a hall tree. It's a custom order for a client. I'm cleaning it with some vinegar water and then rinsing it to make sure that there's no residue for paint. I'm going to use crackle medium on this because my client wants it overall in black, yet she loves red, so we're going to peek through crackle. So this is a Dixie Belle product, and you have to stir it thoroughly. And you want to coat the entire piece, and you want to put a generous coat on it. In general, the thicker you apply the crackle medium, the larger the cracks will be that you get. I'm using a chip brush that I can throw away if I want to. It's not one of the best brushes I own, simply because this crackle medium is sort of like a thick glue. I have a plan in mind, and it's kind of experimental. So I'm using IOD paint inlays. So please use my experience as your teacher. So when the crackle medium gets dry, it looks like it's wet. You just have to touch it to make sure it's dry. It dries really shiny. And I'm going to use black sands, the silk color, over top of it to get my crackle. The silk is an all-in-one paint. Again, I'm being generous. You see I'm using a great big brush. I'm using the best dang brush. And the important thing with this is that you're not back brushing. That's why I'm using such a big brush. And I don't want you to go over, back and forth over your strokes as little as possible. So just kind of note that there's just very little back and forth. Just trying to put on as much paint with as little strokes as possible. With the paint inlay, while the paint is wet, you lay the inlay in. And of course, I'm kind of a newbie, so I'm going to tell you don't try this at home, and then I'm going to tell you don't try this at all. The reason why is that, first of all, the paint I'm using is an all-in-one paint, meaning it has a sealer built in. In retrospect, I realize that they don't really recommend that for the inlays, although I've actually used it before with them. It doesn't work as well as regular chalk paint, but nonetheless, I did use it, and I've heard of others that did. So that's not the biggest issue, but what the biggest issue is, I kind of forgot that the crackle medium is essentially like glue. So the layer of paint that I put on top of it kind of reactivated that glue, and so did this process right now. What I'm doing, after you lay the paint in, you want to make sure that you can use a mister bottle or a rag to make sure that it's wet and it's all adhered and you don't have your wrinkles in there. And then you wait. You want to wait until it's dry, and that waiting time is a good time for me to make a special announcement. Breaking news, I'm now an IOD stockist, and I'm thrilled. And I can't wait till my product arrives. So now it's time to re-wet that paper and peel it back, which is really satisfying when it works right. But let's remember that it did not work right because of using the crackle medium. I'm kind of sad here because I realize that this paper is getting ripped and ruined, because usually you can use these sheets again. Not this time. So, kind of sad about that. Please use my mistake and don't make the same mistake. So who would have thought? Apparently not me. So anyway, I'm never one to take a mistake as the end of the project and stop because it's ruined. I keep moving forward, I continue to peel it, and then we'll see what we've got, and we'll move forward from there. Okay, everything's dry, and now we're going to sand it back and regroup. This time, I'm going to plan out my pattern a little better anyway, because I don't really want it to go the whole way down to the bottom because there's going to be a bench there. But the patterns match up a little bit, so I'm going to make a new plan. This time I apply a clear sealer. I'm using Satin Clear Coat from Dixie Belle. And again, we're using over that all-in-one paint, and really we should be good on this step. But remember, I'm a newbie. So it works out better this time, but still not really thrilled, and I was worried that I might have placed even one of the sheets upside down. That little piece that attaches, you always want to make sure that you put the paint side down. So I'm not sure how that worked, but it seemed like that piece got laid incorrectly. So don't get me wrong, I love these paint inlays. I love them, and I can't wait for my inventory to come. But do use a chalky style paint. This was a total experiment, and you know, it didn't go so well, but that's how you learn. That's how people learn new things, right? So call me a maverick. I come back and I use the mister bottle now, and I'm praying for better results, and I am getting much better results. It's still a little bit of a struggle, and I think that's because of the all-in-one paint, but it is coming up, getting a little tearing, so I'm trying to be careful. I think some of that glue is still coming through. But things are going a little bit better. I do pull some paint in some areas. Overall, believe it or not, like I said, I'm kind of not upset about what resulted. So keep watching and you'll see what I mean. Okay, let's let that sit for a while, and then we're going to move on to something else. Using JRV decoupage paper right now, and here's a method that I'm using to actually cut out the images. So you can see there's only actually 3 images on this whole paper. They're repeated, But I'm using a paintbrush with water on it to just kind of outline the shape, and that's how I'm going to gently tear out the images rather than cut them and have a sharp line. Again, I'm using the Dixie Belle clear coat, and I'm on the back of the door. So I'm on the side that's going to face against the wall, and I have my paper, and the image side is going to face forward. So we're doing this treatment on the back of the glass. So I did thoroughly clean the glass, and I'm just deciding where I want the image, and I'm putting the satin clear coat, and then now you see me from the other side applying another image. But that's kind of what it looks like through the glass as I apply that image. I'm just smoothing it out with my fingers and then putting another coat of the clear coat over top of it. And then I do take a paper towel, a wet paper towel, and just kind of clean up around the outside edges to get that excess sealer off. And then I do one more image. I'm going to be doing a mirror treatment on here. So while that's drying, then I make some molds. So I'm using an IOD mold, and I'm using some Amazing Casting Resin, 2-part epoxy. And when it's warm, this stuff sets up really fast. I'm using an older bottle, and it was a little gummy, so this application set up way faster. You can already see it getting white in there, way faster than usual. So I'm using this mold to get some laurel leaf designs, and I'm going to use these around the door. And I'm also making one to cover the hole that was left from the lock in the doorknob. So I'm just kind of playing around with these shapes to see how I might want them. And then I look at my design again, and I decide that I did not like the scale of the designs in there. So it's kind of like a tree with birds in it, and actually I decided they were kookaburra. I used to sing that song in grade school. At any rate, I'm taking the IOD transfer that's toile, and I'm placing it over the larger images to disguise them, and I feel like it's more relatable. There's toile on the door, toile on the mirror. My client said she likes toile, and also this kind of remedies the scale situation. So yeah, we're going a little crazy here with our applications, but that's what you have to do sometimes, you know. Overall, again, I'm happy with the way it looks, and we keep moving with the transfers, and then I may have to touch it up with a little bit of paint, and that's okay too. But I'm going to come back to that, and I'm going to go to the mirror. So right now, what I'm using is a solution of vinegar water again, and I spray that onto the glass, and because I'm working vertically, I'm using a paper towel to kind of dab at those places where I sprayed, because I don't really want drips. Now I'm going to use Looking Glass spray paint, and I spray the paint all over the back of the glass. I dab at it a little bit again to avoid those drips. While that's drying, I put a coat of the paint on the molds that I made. Here's the one I did for the doorknob. I used a coaster mold with a rosette on top of it, and I'm doing a little dry brushing in both the red and steel magnolia. I've glued and taped them on so they don't run down, and I've put one coat of steel magnolia on the legs. Here's where I left it at the end of the day. I had to get that doorknob flat so that it would be up against the wall. So I got my metal jigsaw blades and used it to cut the rest of that little piece of the doorknob off so it would mount flush against the wall. I used some E6000 and a clamp to make sure that it stays in place. Next, I scrape the excess paint from the front, and I'm feeling like it needs a little something extra, so I take Dixie Belle paint in burlap because there are tan tones in there, and then also I use dried sage as well. And then I go back in and I even add a little honky tonk red. My shelf is an old cabinet door, and believe me, it was a perfect fit and a perfect color. It was already that color. And now I'm taking some wax and I'm using brown wax again to speak to those tan tones, and also grunge gray wax. So bringing in some tan and gray, and then I'm taking a little bit of white wax and hitting some of those details with a small brush. Remember the big red door? Well, let's take a look at what it looks like now. It's chock full of details, definitely not your average hall tree. Thank you so much for watching today. If you like this video, how about giving it a thumbs up and also share it with your friends? If you haven't subscribed, you'll want to do that so you don't miss anything. Visit us at LaVintageDecor.company, and on Instagram we're LaVintageDecor, and on Facebook we're LaVintageDecor Altoona. Stay well.